Hello there, it's Tom here, and this is Chapter 13 of Gunnerkrigg Court, A Week for Cat. So straight away we see there's some kid in the class who isn't in uniform, and also at the same time, this little thing here, Annie is asking what Cat got for question number 4, possibly on their homework that they should have done the previous night. Anyway, and this is a page where Winsbury has to fulfill his unfortunately boring antagonistic role by confronting this new kid for not being in uniform. And like I said in the previous video, this was supposed to be Winsbury's character, but it was something that I grew tired of pretty quickly. He does a few more jerky things in this chapter, but luckily it's a disposition that he soon grows out of. But we see here, he's a bit confrontational to this boy, mainly because he's somebody that they don't recognize, an outsider in their class. And what's this? Something's written on the table. So anyway, this kid manages to give as good as he gets and makes Winsbury look a little dumb, but it's down to Cat to interject, and that makes Winsbury back off. So the form teacher, Cat's mom, comes in and lets everybody know that his name is Alistair and that he'll be joining their classes for the week. So Cat, the forward girl that she is, goes up and introduces herself, and they start to hang out. And I just wanted them to be talking about stuff that kids might talk about, just general pop culture stuff. Here I refrain from mentioning a lot of things by name, but they're all talking about stuff that I'm personally interested in. And you see, of course, in every progression, Annie is less and less part of the group until in this final panel here, she's not even there. And with this next page, I wanted to show that Cat and Ali are connecting on a level that perhaps Annie isn't really capable of, because it's probably one of the first times where Cat's hung out with somebody who is interested in a lot of the same things that she is. And Tuesday, we see here that Ali has been instructed to practice making a house out of sticks for some strange reason. Just out of interest, this is the house from the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And Ali mentions that he has no idea if he's going to a new school or anything afterwards. So on Wednesday, they're having a games lesson in the gym, and Winsbury making fun of the fact that Ali's wearing a scarf and gloves and a long-sleeve shirt. And so Ali retaliates with the kind of revenge that I think a lot of youngsters fantasized about, where you completely show up someone else with just pure skill that came out of nowhere. But it does leave Ali stranded a bit out of his depth, and Nicklemore steps in. He seems to hint that he understands that Ali needs to be a bit careful, and just another small hint at Annie kind of being a bit standoffish with old Jimmy Jims. But Annie here, for some reason, just picks Ali up by the shirt, because she's realized that his body must be very light, almost as if his bones are hollowing out. But Cat doesn't care, she's just embarrassed, and Annie's just left standing there like a dope. But she's not the only dope for long, because the next morning, Cat is a terrible mess, trying to do herself up to impress Ali. And of course, to rescue the day, Annie cleans her up and says that she doesn't need makeup, because she's already pretty good looking without it, and it's clear that Ali likes her already. And this is really the first fight that they've had, but they quickly make up afterwards. However, Cat does mention that if Annie says that she doesn't need makeup, why does Annie wear makeup? Which is completely ignored. So on this day, when they meet up with Ali, they just go and hang out in the library, and Annie tries to exercise her social graces. She gives them a bit of privacy. And it's the day before they leave, and they both admit that they'll miss each other. And the next day, Friday, unfortunately, Ali just makes a quick appearance to say goodbye and runs off, without much explanation, leaving Cat a bit shocked. And throughout the morning, she's shown to be pretty depressed, and again it's down to Annie to step in, and she decides that Cat will see Alistair before he leaves. They head over to the tower rooms where Ali's been staying, and Annie unceremoniously pushes Cat into the room, where we see that, surprise, surprise, Alistair is turning into a bird. And this is another reference to some sort of test, where people are being given new bodies, and Annie takes note of that because that's very similar to what the fairies that she's met down by the Ennan Waters referred to. And what we're seeing here is the opposite side, where humans are deciding to become animals so that they can go off to live in the forest. They talk about him turning into a bird now, and he gives her all of his stuff, and they get to share a hug just before he finally changes into a crane. So they say goodbye, and he flies off, and she never sees him again. And the end just shows that rather than be sad about the whole thing, Cat is happy that she just had an enjoyable week and met somebody that she liked. So the reason I did this chapter was because I wanted to show the sort of relationship that you might have when you're a young kid. When I was a lot younger, my family moved around a lot between countries, mainly America and the UK. And there were times where I would make friends at school, and then we would have to move to another country, so I would never see them again. And I wanted to sort of portray that here, where when you're a youngster, you're not really in any control of your situation, and you might meet people that you will never see again. And for all intents and purposes, they cease to exist, since you might be powerless to keep track of them or even remember them later on. And I just wanted to show that in a metaphorical way here, by having the person that Kat meets for a short amount of time literally change into a bird and fly away that she never sees again. And originally the chapter got me into a bit of trouble. Some people thought that changing Ali into a bird and having him fly away was tantamount to child abuse. But by and large, people seemed to enjoy the chapter, and they kind of understood what I was getting at. And just out of interest, it was around this time where I decided to sort of take a step back from discussing my comic in public, especially in places such as the Gunnerkrigg forums and things like that, because it seemed like my comments about my work were not particularly well received. So from that point on, I decided to just let the work speak for itself and just let people talk about it amongst themselves. And this bonus page is just the beginning of a long-running joke where Kat just likes birds. And that's the end of chapter 13. Come back again for chapter 14, The Fangs of Summertime.